You know that feeling when you have poured your heart into creating a post, you hit publish or it goes live if you scheduled it, and then you get nothing? Yeah, we have all been there and it sucks. But never fear, because as always, I have got you. Today I am talking about understanding what might be holding your post back based on tips and advice that has come from Instagram themselves. So if your content isn't reaching as many people as it should, or if it feels like your engagement is stuck in first gear, then this episode is just what you need. So keep listening. But before we dive in, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to tune in to Show Up and Be Heard, the podcast that exists to help women like you simplify your business and your life so that you can stop feeling so overwhelmed. I am your host, Becci McAvoy, owner and founder of Be Heard Socials and Boss Your Socials Club, and I am an award-winning social media marketer and international speaker who specialises in content strategy and organic growth on social media. If you want to cut through the noise and BS and get practical, actionable advice tailored specifically to make social media marketing accessible and easy to understand, or if you want to be part of a supportive community where women entrepreneurs can feel connected and inspired to achieve their dreams, then keep listening, because you are in the right place. To be the first to find out when new episodes go live and get more tips like the ones you hear in this podcast, make sure you join my email community through the link in the show notes. Right then, let's get started with this week's episode. So, you may or may not have seen that recently Instagram shared some key insights about content best practices and what could be limiting your distribution on the platform. And so I thought, what better thing to do than use one of the episodes of the podcast to share what they've said with you, because that's exactly what I'm here for. I am here. It's my job to day in, day out, know what's going on the platforms, keep updated, know about the new features. And that's exactly what I want this podcast to be, Boss Your Socials Club to be, everything I do to be, really. To take the time away from you having to suss it all out for yourself. So I am going to be breaking down the tips that they've giving you some practical examples, like I like to do, of how you might relate this to your own business. And of course, I will be sprinkling in my own advice along the way. As always, this will be about making things simple, accessible, and overwhelm free. So I'm going to start with that from the beginning, because that, as you will know if you've listened for a while, is something I am super, super passionate about. Okay, so I'm going to try and make this quite a short, snappy episode so that you can listen to it and crack on with your day. So I'm going to get stuck straight into the information that Instagram shared. So first up, the first thing they mentioned, I want to talk to you about watermarks. So if you have been posting content with watermarks from other platforms like TikTok, for example, it is time to rethink that strategy. Instagram has made it really clear they don't love it and they want you to ditch watermark. That was their actual words, ditch the watermark, as it may be impacting your reach. This means that if your reel or post has a big old TikTok logo bouncing around in it, for example, that the algorithm may decide to show it to fewer people. Now, this is annoying, but here's the reason why. And whilst it's annoying, we do have to kind of get it. Instagram wants original content. They've said this a few times, and they've recently also said it as one of their priorities for 2025. So this isn't changing anytime soon. It's one of their priorities for this year. They want to prioritize original content, which means they are prioritizing posts that are made for their platform. Now, that doesn't mean you have to create completely different posts. It just means that you have to consider certain things. So here's what I suggest that you do. If you're repurposing content from one platform to another, and it's got a watermark on it. So if you've created something on TikTok, for example, you've downloaded it and it's got the watermark on it, try using apps or tools to remove the watermark, or create it in something where the watermark isn't going to be, you've got the original copy of it before it goes on to TikTok, for example. It is a little extra effort, but trust me, I think it's worth it, especially as Instagram have come out themselves and said this is probably going to limit your reach. Of course, if you have time to create a version specifically for Instagram that feels unique and native to the platform, then brilliant. If you've done something specifically for TikTok, then that's great. But like I said, that's not what I'm saying you have to do. It's just about creating it in a way that you can take the watermark off it. So whether that's using apps and tools to do that, or recording the video completely outside of the apps and using something different and then putting it across the platforms. So yeah, that is the first one, watermarks. Relatively nice and simple. Like I said, annoying, but relatively nice and simple. Just don't use watermarks because it will limit your reach. The next big one to avoid, they said, was posting content that you didn't make. Now this, I guess, is probably a bit of a pet peeve of mine, because you shouldn't really be creating content that you didn't make anyway, because it's not fair on the original creator. But I won't get on that soapbox. Even if you are doing that, don't do it, because Instagram has said it will limit your reach. The algorithm doesn't like duplicates. So if you are reposting content that's already floating around Instagram somewhere, or you've taken off someone else, it's not going to push your version to the forefront, because it will be pushing the original. Why? Like I've already said, it's because Instagram wants to prioritize original content, and the algorithm has already seen it. And so because the algorithm has already seen it, they're going to prioritize the original. Now, does this mean that you can't ever repost? Absolutely not. But when you do, put your own spin on it. So if, for example, you've seen something that inspires you, then take inspiration from the post and create something that is uniquely yours. And like I said, I mean, obviously you should do this now, because Instagram are saying it can impact your reach. But also, there's a fine line and a difference between taking inspiration from people's posts, because I genuinely don't believe that any content is original. Even if someone thinks you've copied them, they've probably got that inspiration from somewhere else. But it's taken inspiration from it rather than copying it directly that is the really important bit. So putting your own spin on it, like I said. For example, if you are a baker, for example, and you've seen a viral recipe that everybody is absolutely loving, rather than, and it's a recipe that maybe you've used, it doesn't have to be a recipe you've used, but you've seen this viral recipe and you want to share it on your page as well, to pick up the traction that's going from the trend, or because it's gone viral, or whatever it may be. You can do this by showing your audience how you put your own twist on it. So, for example, I'm going to show my real lack of knowledge around baking here. And one of the reasons you'll find from a lot of the examples that I give, I use members in Boss Your Socials Club, because I think about all the different businesses in there. And there is a baker in Boss Your Socials Club. She has an incredible membership called Bake With Me. Her name is Caroline, and she's Huntington House Kitchen. And if she is listening to this, I apologise, Caroline, if I absolutely massacre this, but I'm going to try and give the best example that I can. So say, for example, you are that baker, and you've seen a viral recipe. Show your audience how you put your own twist on it to make it original. So you've taken inspiration from the first one, but then put your own twist on it. So maybe you are sharing a gluten-free version of something, or a child-friendly version of something. Just keep it fresh, keep it you, and put your own spin on it, because that makes it original content. Like I said, there is no original content, if we are all honest, but there is a fine line between directly copying someone and duplicating it and putting your own twist on something. So keep that in your mind when you are creating the content. Okay, next up on things to avoid was reels over 90 seconds. And this might be a little bit controversial. It might be a little bit annoying for people, but Instagram have come out and said that you should be keeping your videos under 90 seconds when targeting audiences who don't follow you yet. That's a really good reason to do reels, because they can get quite a lot of reach. But if they are really long, the algorithm is less likely to prioritize them and push them out to newer audiences. They have said that the sweet spot is between 30 seconds and 90 seconds. Now, this will largely probably be because people's attention spans are pretty short, and people aren't generally coming on social media to watch really long videos. Now, that might change, and it'll be interesting to see if Instagram does change this over time, because TikTok, for example, introduced longer videos, and they have been quite popular. And it might be that Instagram changes this in the future, but at the moment they are saying to keep it under 90 seconds. So I will keep an eye out on that to see if it changes. And of course, I will let you know if it does. And especially that might change, just because, I mean, TikTok is well up in the air at the point of recording this episode. We don't really know what's happening with it, being banned in America, although we probably know what's happening with it. So I'm sure more changes will come. But for now, they are saying keep your reels under 90 seconds. Otherwise, they are unlikely to push it out to audiences who don't follow you, which is something you want if you're going to the effort of creating reels, because let's face it, they take time and creativity. So if you're like, but Becky, I've got so much to say, I get you. I feel you. I am that person. I have a lot to say, which is probably why I have a podcast. So don't worry, you can still have longer videos, and you can still use it on Instagram, but just maybe think about breaking it down into bite-sized chunks. So instead of having one long reel, you could try a series of reels if you're able to do that, maybe, or you could use it to you could post a video on a platform that does prioritize slightly longer content, so whether that is TikTok or YouTube, for example, and then repurpose it over on Instagram into shorter chunks and direct them to where the full video is to watch it, for example. And you can use tools like Opus Clip, which I will tag in the show notes. It's something I use and love, and basically you can upload full videos to there, and it will break it uses AI to break it down into chunks. And it's what I use. The reason that I use it is to create my reel clips for this podcast. So yeah, Opus Clip is something you could use if you want to break it down and direct people to watch a full video somewhere else. Or like I said, you could break it down into bite-sized chunks, and instead of doing one long reel, you could try a series. So for example, if you are a florist teaching how to make a bouquet of flowers, again, I don't know why I choose these things, because I start talking about it and realize I've got no idea what I'm talking about. So apologies to any florists out there. But if you are a florist and you're teaching how to make a bouquet of flowers, or that's what your long video is going to be about, turn it into a mini series. So for example, step 1 would be how to pick the flowers for your bouquet, and you keep that under 90 seconds. And then step 2 is how you arrange the flowers in your bouquet, and step 3 is how you wrap the flowers in your bouquet, if that is a thing. If there's any florists listening, let me know if I've massacred that or not. But you get what I'm saying. You can make it into a series. This is really good actually for Instagram, because it keeps your audience engaged and wanting more. Plus, Instagram loves engagement, which I bang on all the time, and it loves engagement on multiple posts. So the more posts that you're getting your audience to interact with, the better. It's win-win. And also, you've gone from having this one long video to having 4, 5, 6 maybe pieces of content. And who doesn't love that? Because you don't have to create more. And you can even use the call to action to say, if you want more tips like this, make sure you turn on the notifications for my profile, which is brilliant for the algorithm, and the algorithm will love, because it loves relationships, and get people to come back and watch more. So keep your reels under 90 seconds. And those are just a few tips of how you can do that if you've got a lot to say or you've got longer videos. Okay, next up, they spoke about non-recommendable content. And this one's really important, because it goes without saying, if your content violates Instagram's guidelines, it won't get recommended. And that's obviously a huge roadblock to your reach. So what does this include? It includes things like, it includes content, for example, it's overly graphic, harmful, or inappropriate. So here is my advice on that. Always keep your audience in mind. And if it's not something that feels aligned with your brand values, don't post it. And if you're not sure whether something crosses the line, err on the side of caution. Your brand's integrity and trust with your audience are way more important than one risky post. Now, I kind of have a lot to say on this, and I have a lot of my own personal views on this in terms of what social media's guidelines are, and whether they should be that, and many, many things, which if you're anything like me, you'll probably know what is going on in my head. But I don't want to talk about that right now. All I want you, and I'm not even saying don't post stuff, just keep this in mind when you're posting, because if you are posting non-recommendable content, whatever we think of why it won't be recommended, is going to be a huge roadblock to your reach. So just think about ways that you can do that. Like I said, it's not to say don't. And some businesses will have things that they need to speak about that might be seen as harmful. And that's where you need to think about your messaging, which I'm going to touch on in one of the other things Instagram have said in a moment. And that's what I'm going to go on to now. Now, certain topics can limit your distribution too. I'm not going to go into my own personal views on that, because I will go off on a rant. But let's have a chat about it elsewhere if you want to. Come DM me and we can have a chat about it. But topics that can limit your distribution will include things like graphic violence, sexually explicit content, or anything that trivializes serious issues like mental health, death, and depression. And actually, death and depression, when Instagram gave out this advice, they actually specifically named death and depression. Instagram is taking a stand on these, and rightly so. It's not just about following the rules, it's about creating a safe and supportive space for your community. Now, like I said, I have many views on that. That's not what this episode is about. So for now, all I'm going to touch on is the fact that it can limit your distribution. So to think about it. Like I said just now, this is where your messaging really matters. You can absolutely talk about important topics, but just do it thoughtfully. For example, if you're a mental health coach, you can share tips for self-care or talk about your personal journey in a way that's empowering and respectful. But just be careful in your messaging, basically. That is a much bigger conversation than me just talking about it on this podcast. So I'm not going to go into detail about it because it will be very specific to what your business is, what your message is, what you sell, all that kind of stuff. So what I am just going to say is certain topics can limit your distribution. That can be frustrating. There's a lot of businesses who deal with those kind of topics, and it's really important that you do get that message out there. Just think about how you do it, get your messaging right, and do it thoughtfully and carefully. So yeah, that is what Instagram said around limiting your distribution because of certain topics. Okay, finally, let's talk about engagement bait. Now, I talk about engagement a lot. You know that I do. I think I now link to this in pretty much the show notes of every episode, but I will link to the episode that I did that was specifically around what engagement really means and how to do it. However, engagement bait is not something we want. You know, those posts that scream comment, like, and share that give you absolutely no reason why you would comment, like, and share on it, or the tag 5 friends to win. I know lots of businesses do that and it's great. Like maybe in the short run, but Instagram isn't a fan. They see it as engagement bait, and it's the same as, you know, why engagement pods are a load of rubbish. So where you can basically get in groups and go, oh, please, you know, like my comment, like my post and comment on my post and all that kind of stuff. It's not to say like don't get your cheerleaders and your fans and your friends and whatever to do that, but it needs to be authentic. So it doesn't just want like a random emoji thrown on something, for example, in the case of engagement pods. It wants authentic engagement, so stay away from engagement bait. These tactics, what's annoying about these is they might get you some quick engagement in the short term, but they won't help you in the long run, because Instagram is coming out themselves and saying this is something that might limit your reach. Which just to me says they might hurt your reach in the long run, because the algorithm sees right through them. So stay away from engagement bait. Instead, focus on authentic engagement. Like I was saying just now, ask thoughtful questions, start meaningful conversations, and encourage genuine interactions. And this is where I'm saying, don't not ask people to come and engage with your content, because obviously that's nice. And if you've got business friends or you've got supporters, and they might be people that have similar target audiences to you or are your target audience, even if they're not going to buy from you, get them to come and engage in your post by all means, but it needs to be meaningful and it needs to be authentic. So, for example, if you are a small business that sells candles, you could ask, what's your favourite scent to burn in winter? And you'll get loads of sort of thoughtful, you'll get conversation on there that's actually relevant, it's authentic, it's directly related to what you're trying, what you're selling and all that kind of stuff. It is simple, it's engaging, and it's real when you ask questions like that. And that's what keeps your audience coming back for more. So obviously I've spoken a lot in the past about engagement. I've also spoken about how to write better captions, and I've got an episode which I will tag in the show notes about how to write better captions. And I talk about having call to actions on there, and I talk about asking questions, and I talk about asking people to share and all of that kind of stuff. But it's about doing it meaningfully and not just lashing on a call to action at the end, asking people to share something and it being completely inauthentic. So just think about that when you are putting your content together. Okay, so there you have it. Instagram's top tips to avoid limiting your reach. Remember that it's all about creating content that's original. Instagram has re-emphasized this by, again, openly saying it's one of their priorities for 2025, after mentioning it quite a few times last year. It's about creating content and engagement that is authentic and aligned with your brand values and your business. If you are feeling overwhelmed by all of this, then please do not stress. Start with 1 or 2 changes and build from there. It's about progress, and it's not about perfection. And I say that a lot again, and I will say it a lot because I think it's really important to remember. So don't get overwhelmed by it. And also don't get so hung up in knots about what you're not meant to do that you don't get anything out there at all. Done is better than perfect, and it might limit your reach, but getting something out there gets you more reach than not having anything out there at all. But I wanted to share these with you so that you can keep them in mind if you have the headspace to, and if you want to. As always, I am here to help. So if you've got any questions or need more support, that's exactly the kind of thing Boss Your Socials Club is for, so that we can tackle this together. Or if you want me to go into more detail about something in a future podcast episode, please feel very free to throw me your ideas about what kind of thing you'd like a solo episode around. I can't promise I will do it, but I will certainly bank it to see if it's something I can create in the future for you. But like I said, it's also exactly what Boss Your Socials Club is there for. Thank you so much for listening to Show Up and Be Heard, but please don't go without telling me your name. I genuinely love meeting new people and making new connections. So if you don't already, I'd love it if you'd come find me on Instagram, LinkedIn or Facebook and drop me a message to say hello and let me know what you thought of the episode. The link to all my socials are in the show notes. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode or found it useful, then I'd really appreciate it if you could take just a few minutes to give it a review on whatever platform you are listening on, because every one I get really does make me do a little squeal and a big happy dance. Finally, more than anything else, please always remember, realising that you're not actually meant to do this stuff alone is the first step to making it easier. So I'll see you next time.